Okay. Good evening. And welcome to everyone who's joining us on the internet. We'll go right into the book tonight. The section heading is The Inheritance of God's Son. Never forget that the sonship is your salvation. For the sonship is your soul. Interesting thought. The sonship is your salvation. It's your salvation because it's the means by which you actively and conscientiously abandon your self-imposed isolation. The only way you can break your isolation is by joining with something. And all you have to join with is the sonship, the brotherhood, and creation. When you join with your brothers and creation, you are joining with God. That's all there is there for you to join with, and that's all there is there for you to isolate yourself from. And so the sonship is your salvation because they are what is there for you to join with. You say, well, God's there for me to join with. Yes. But the ego has a twisted sense of justice and a twisted sense of how things work. And it would suggest that all you have to do is join with God, and to heck with your brothers and sisters. Let them join with God on their own. But it cannot work that way because God is the movement of creation. God is the movement of life. And life is constituted of the brotherhood, of all that God has expressed of himself and embodied of himself in everything. Well, can't I approach this from a standpoint of nature and go out and find a nice cave to be in and meditate on the trees and on nature and become one with it? No. That isn't sufficient. Because at some point, you have to re-establish yourself as part of the brotherhood. The moment you say, Father, I'm willing to acknowledge you as my source. I'm willing to acknowledge you as my Father, and you have the resulting experience of knowing that you're his son and not an independent, autonomous agent, you also have put yourself in the position of recognizing that if you're God's son, if you're God's daughter, so are all of the other individuals you know, and therefore they are, and Paul cannot stand this word, they're siblings. You are their brother. They are your brothers and sisters. They are your family. So if you're going to accept God and realize your sonship, you're going to have to accept the fact that everyone else you know is also part of the sonship and is therefore your brother or sister, family. And you've got to embrace them. Why wouldn't you? Well, it isn't your habit to embrace them. You have defined them as different things. Well, they can't be. My salvation can't lie in them. They are my competitors. Or they are my enemies. Or they go to a different church than I do. You see, they are different from me. I am different from them. I'm different from them in a very special way. And that act of separation, that act of rejection of them as not just like you, but that they are part of the infinitude of your being, that they are essential to you in order for what you divinely are, in order for what you divinely are to be complete, you're going to have to embrace them, not just tolerate them. You're going to have to embrace them. You're going to have to abandon the labels you've given to them. The labels that you've given to them in order to set yourself up as something specially different from them. You're going to have to take them into the status of sonship that you are letting yourself back into. And you are going to have to come to the realization that since you have the same Father, Mother, God, as your source, they're just like you. And they're inseparable from you in the fullest meaning of the word family. And you will have to take them home with you. You will have to bring them along with you in your increasingly clear experience of yourself as the Christ, the direct expression of God. Right now. And what you're willing to give away, you get to keep. If you can't keep something that you haven't given away, that means there has to be someone to give it away to. And whoever it is that you can give it away to will be your salvation. It's just the way it works. And that's why the sonship is your salvation. Because they're there as the agent, you might say, for your experiencing the full meaning of the fact that you're not an orphan, that you have a Father. They are the means for your breaking the isolation. It's not enough to just let God in, as though God were one thing amongst all of the brotherhood. All of the brotherhood is God in motion, including you. Never forget that the sonship is your salvation, for the sonship is your soul. As God's creation, it is yours, and belonging to you, it is His, meaning God's. Nothing that God has created is different or separate or apart from you. It's part of the wholeness of you. And belonging to you, coupled with your conscious realization that it belongs to you, it is His, God's. Your realization that you are the Son of God, in so many words, makes God God, confirms God, glorifies God. Because it's no longer leaving God out of the equation. Your soul does not need salvation, but your mind needs to learn what salvation is. You are not saved from anything, but you are saved for glory. For all good things. For being the presence that uninhibitedly glorifies God, because there's nothing in you denying God. Nothing in you claiming a place of equality with God while separate from God. Glory is your inheritance, given your soul by its Creator that you might extend it. You see, that's why the sonship is your salvation, because it is what is available to you to extend it to. Yet, if you hate part of your own soul, your enemy, your competitor, your hateful, selfish, this, that, or the other one in your life. Yet if you hate part of your own soul, all your understanding is lost. Because you are looking on what God created as yourself, because every single one of your brothers and sisters is some part of the infinitude of your being, without love. And since what He created is part of Him, you are denying Him His place in His own altar. The competitor, you see. The selfish child, you see. The dominating mother-in-law, you see. The unscrupulous father, you see, is a thing you have determined in your own mind as those things, and which you hold in front of God, covering God up to you. And so you're denying the presence of God there and giving adamant preference to your definition. And since what He created is part of Him, you are denying Him His place in His own altar. Could you try to make God homeless and know that you are at home? You see? It all lies in how you are relating to your brother. You say, well, I love A Course in Miracles. And I love to sit out on my patio and read it during the afternoon. Or I love to sit in my bed in the morning before anybody is up and have my quiet time with the wonderful and beautiful and comforting truths that I read. But then I have to become involved with somebody else. I have to relate to somebody else. And that's where all the trouble starts. Yeah. That's because your brother's your salvation, but you're using your brother or your sister for a purpose other than your salvation. You're using your brother or your sister to conform your own arrogant importance, your special differentness. You're using your brother to compete with. He's my competitor. Well, if he's your competitor, you are his competitor. You're both in competition. And each one of you is out to best the other. You're not treating your brother, and your brother is not treating you, as though your function is to recognize God in each other. And in recognizing it and embracing it, glorifying God in each other. You each are denying God his home, right in the center of you, right as the center and circumference of what you are. And so when you're denying God, you're denying your sonship, your sonhood. You're claiming to be an orphan. And so you deny God a home, and you cannot experience being at home yourself. Can the Son deny the Father without believing that the Father has denied him? No. God's laws hold only for your protection, and they never hold in vain. In other words, they're always successful at protecting you. What you experience when you deny your Father is still for your protection. You say, well, when I deny the Father, I suffer. When I deny the Father, and I don't see him in my world, and I don't see him in my brother, but what I see is what I've decided they are, well, then I'm in a dog-eat-dog world. And I either have friendly competition, or I have strenuous competition that's called war, where my competitors are my enemies. It's not a pleasant experience. What you experience when you deny your Father is still for your protection, for the power of your will cannot be lessened without the intervention of God against it. When you claim to be an orphan, then you are claiming to be less than what God has created you to be. You are attempting to lessen what you are. And your will cannot be lessened without the intervention of God against it. And any limitation on your power is not the will of God. Now, let's not jump to conclusions. This does not mean that God is a wrathful God. This does not mean that God is out to get you. It means simply, as I've described before, that when you are in the movement of being, when you are yielding to what divine life, truth, and love is unfolding as creation in your day, you experience no distress, no tension. You experience harmony. You experience everything fitting together. You find everything that happens to be a blessing, not only for you, but for everyone else. But when you say, but Father, I'd rather do it my way, then it's as though there is a rubber band attached to your waist and the other end of it attached to the movement of being, attached to God, if you will. And when you say, Father, I'd rather do it my way, and you attempt to not move with the movement and dig your heels in, immediately what happens? The rubber band begins to get taut. And you have to exert a great deal of energy to hold your place and to move to the right or the left instead of forward, or to stand still against the forward movement. See? And this is what it means when it says, what you experience when you deny your Father is still for your protection, for the power of your will cannot be lessened without the intervention of God against it. Reality continues to be the only thing going on, whether you're choosing to pay attention to it or not. And if you're choosing not to pay attention to it, then your experience of being becomes one of tension, stress, distress, discomfort, and all the rest. Not because God has turned around and said, a curse on you, but because reality isn't going to stop being just because you've decided not to go along with it. And so as it continues to be what it perfectly is, you experience distress until you finally say, Uncle, and yield to the Father and say, hey, Dad, wait up, I'm coming, and run forward to be with the movement of your being. Therefore, look only to the power that God gave to save you, remembering that it is yours because it is His, and join with your brothers in His peace. Is it beginning to sink in? You can't wake up alone. You can't wake up because you have an enlightened awareness of what you are. Because until you give away what you're aware of, you won't be able to keep it. It doesn't become an endorsement on your part. It doesn't become yours as a full-fledged conscious experience. And so your brother is your salvation. And somewhere along the line, they have to become an object of your affection, where they are worth whatever energy you have to put forth to change your sorry perception of them for one that reflects the truth about them, significantly enough for your behavior toward them to change. continuing, the peace of your soul lies in its limitlessness. See, limitlessness is the antithesis of privacy, isn't it? Of littleness. Limit the peace you share. See, I'll share it with you, but I won't share it with you dirty dealing competitor, you see. Limit the peace you share, and your own soul must be unknown to you, must be covered up to you. Every altar to God is part of your soul, because the light He created is one with Him. Would you cut off a brother from the light that is yours? Not if you knew that it was the light that was yours. See, your brother is your salvation, because the light that is in him, that you're denying at the moment while you're satisfied with your awful definition of him, the light in him that is yours won't be apparent to you as being yours until you honor it in him or her. Until you give it away, you will not have the experience of it being yours. Your brother is your salvation. Would you cut off a brother from the light that is yours? You would not do so if you realized that you can only darken your own mind. As you bring him back, so will your mind return. That is the law of God for the protection of the wholeness of His Son. You see, if you want to wake up, if you want to come back home, you have to undo the act that caused you to seem to be separated. And the act was an act of independence. You had an Independence Day. And whatever you abandon your independence from becomes your salvation. Because the act of undoing the separation, the act of abandoning independence, is what returns you to your right mind, is what returns you to your sanity. Only you can deprive yourself of anything. What you don't realize is that the most effective way you have of depriving yourself of something is by depriving your brother of something. By always putting him at a disadvantage. By always making him responsible or her responsible for the way your life is going. You take away something from your brother when what's called for is to give your brother something or your sister. And what's the one and only thing you can give that is meaningful? It is the recognition and acknowledgement of God being right there where they are. And refusing to abandon that acknowledgement. That's called love. Love is the willingness to recognize that which is real in each and everything.